Hello and welcome to a new episode of That Fertile Feeling, the podcast. My name is Françoise and I'm here today with Maria Souza, who is a comparative mythologist, a poet, a historian, and educator. And Maria has a deep commitment to exploring the rich tapestry of myths and their relevance in contemporary life. She's from Brazil, and I just mentioned to her that that's actually my favorite country in the world. I used to live there a while myself, but that's over 15 years ago. And she currently lives in Australia and I'm in the Netherlands. So for her, it's early morning. For me, it's beyond my bedtime. So if I have trouble finding words, please bear with me. That's just the hour. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for meeting me here in your early morning, Maria. Welcome on the show.
Thank you, Frances. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And hello, everyone.
And maybe you'd like to explain in your own words as well a little bit about who you are, what you do. I forgot to mention that you have an amazing account on Instagram, a website, Women and Mythology, a podcast. So, yeah, how did this all come about?
So, as a mythologist, we study a lot of stories, myths, folk tales, legends, even fairy tales. And well, there are many mythologists doing different work out there. For me, my greatest passion is to show people how these stories can be relevant for our lives today. What can we learn about this in our modern contemporary life? How can this be a healing balm? How can story be medicine for us? Then my other passion is also women and the feminine journey. So I'm really focused on myths for women, the wounds of women, the qualities that women must nurture in their lives. And that's why I created a small business called Women and Mythology, in which, as you said, I teach courses, workshops. I have my podcast also called Women and Mythology, and I really want to make the wisdom of myths accessible. So I use a lot of social media. My favorite one is Instagram, to share a little bit of that. It's all about looking into myths as well in a symbolic language. So we don't look for a literal interpretation or one final moral, but we look into how myths can problematize behaviors. I see myths as mirrors and maps. So they show who we are, they show our past kind of journey, but then also they guide us forward towards who we are becoming. And there are different offerings in there. I absolutely love the work. I found my passion, I found my thread, and I'm very excited for how it's going to be developed over the years.
And can you remember what the first myth or story was that left an imprint on your life?
When I was a child, I was always a very girly girl. I
Hmm.
have two sisters. My mom is a very feminine woman, and we grew up with the Disney fairy tales. I know a lot of people hate them.
Hmm.
And I get how they have imprinted in women qualities and ideas that don't sustain our most sovereign life. But I absolutely loved the stories. I loved the magic around it. I love the whole, well, seeing the courage of those princesses. The truth is, they seem very passive if you have a first easy glance at them, but they're actually very courageous. So I would say that the first stories that imprinted probably were the princess fairy tales.
Hmm.
But then later on, especially when I started working more with um, ancient myths, I started looking at more land-based stories,
Hmm.
stories of creator, as well creation myths with goddesses. Greek mythology had a great impression on me when I was in university studying history. So all the stories, I was even thinking here, because of the theme of our conversation, the story of Demeter and Persephone is very beautiful for me.
Yeah, can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. So Demeter, she is the earth goddess in Greek mythology, and she's also the mother goddess. She has a daughter called Persephone, and they're very close to each other. And Persephone at some point is abducted, into the underworld by Hades. There are versions that don't talk actually about an abduction, and Persephone actually voluntarily goes. She wants to go, which I love that version because it gives her so much agency over her
Mm,
life instead of being taken. She wants to go. She wants the wisdom of the underworld. She wants the wisdom of, the darkness of that space of death. And in this going, or in this being taken, Demeter, the earth goddess, is left alone in the topside world. And as a devoted and loving mother, she feels incredibly alone, incredibly empty in some ways, and she curses the land. Nothing grows, no babies in women's belly,
mm,
no vows are given to the dead. And she grows into a terrible depression, in a terrible sense of loss, of no vitality. And well, time goes on. There are different versions of the myth, but Persephone is restored after Demeter continues her search and she uses the help of Helios. There are some versions as well that the goddess of sacred sexuality, Baubo, which is a beautiful goddess where she has a vulva for her mouth and eyes for her breast, comes in and she helps by installing some sacred laughter, some breath. So there is space created within Demeter that animates her out of her depression into life, more vitality for her. So she has energy to continue,
mm,
to have duration, to have that strength. And she ends up asking for Zeus's help, and Persephone is restored. And with that, she becomes Persephone herself, the goddess of the underworld, because her time in the underworld, she married Hades.
mm,
Hades gives her 6 pomegranate seeds, and by eating those seeds, she is then also kind of tied to the underworld. So she spends 6 months on the topside world with her mother Demeter. She is the goddess of spring, Persephone, and
mm,
then 6 months in the underworld as the goddess of the dead.
mm,
It's really beautiful because then we have Persephone here, daughter, birth and death, right? She is the cycle. She is
mm,
the cycle of life, death, life. She is the cycle of spring, and she is the cycle of winter, the time
mm,
nature, the time Persephone goes down, the nature withers in many ways. And Demeter, we have her as the image of this loving, devoted mother, but who is learning different things. And there are other myths with other versions of Demeter as well, other aspects of her come forward. But she is nourishing, she is life bringer,
mm,
life giver, she is protector. She is also a woman. In her story with Baubo, we see her women aspect, not only
mm,
her mother aspect. So it's a very interesting tale that speaks to a lot of women.
mm. I love what you're saying, especially the part about Baubo.
Mm,
Um, my approach to fertility is very much you can't control whether you get pregnant or not. The only thing you can control is how well you take care of yourself along the way and creating space. And I know it's easier said than done, but creating that space for true nourishment, for joy, for yourself on that journey. And then, my work is very much based on the nervous system. I can then even tie it into sort of the physiology of fertility. But just that's what I love about that part of the myth, the reminder that um, there has to be more than just a focus on that
mm, yeah,
conception, on the fertility, on the wanting to be that mother or that mother side of you. Um, there has to be a version of you there as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think what myths also teach us is that in our journey, let's say to become mother, to be mother, and the desire of being mother, there are other aspects of ourself, other facets to ourselves that must be cultivated, that must be nourished, because it will inform also our mothering experience.
Yeah, it's like laying a foundation for that entire journey that follows afterwards.
Yeah.
I know you have one. I think one child or
So
two? Two already. So how was your journey towards motherhood? And did you, yeah, was mythology an anchor for you on that journey?
it was absolutely an anchor. It was an anchor and a salvation. It was, it is, to be honest. It is. It is every day what grounds me, what guides me. It's the wisdom I found in myths and stories. It's the passion I have also towards it. And my journey for motherhood began so long before I actually had my children and I got pregnant with my children. The story actually begins, I would say, when I had four pregnancies and
Mm,
I have two children.
mm,
One pregnancy was a miscarriage and one pregnancy was an abortion. And I feel this is all tied together. You
mm,
know, it's not one disconnected from the other. One informs the other. So I did an abortion, and I hope it's okay to talk about this here. I did an abortion when I was 19 years old. I was very young. I had received zero sexual education. It was my first boyfriend, and I got pregnant very young. My mom also was a little bit traditional, and she believed I wasn't having sex, and there was no space for
mm,
that conversation in my house, so I was just doing it unprotected. And well, I got pregnant. And for me, the right decision at that time was to have an abortion. So I kind of went through it. I don't regret it, but at the same time, I feel like it was done in the most unsacred way possible. An abortion is really dealing with life and death
mm,
of the baby, of the mother, of those around.
mm,
And I did it all in a very clinical manner. I had no instruction into looking into the spiritual life of that child. I had no instruction in holding my own wounds and trauma that was being, generated through that experience.
mm,
So it was something that was done in many ways. At the time, I felt like a problem that was fixed and I moved on. Well, that's what I thought so at the
mm,
time. And I continued university years. Then I went into an internship in Botswana. Like kind of I moved away. I felt like I needed to move away from that environment, from things that reminded me, even unconsciously. I went to live in Botswana where I did an internship with Huro communities. Then I went to do my master's in the UK, and it was there in the UK that I started looking a little bit more into my abortion. As you mentioned, I'm from Brazil. Brazil abortions are not only illegal,
mm,
but they're also a sin. They're
mm,
considered a sin. So for me, I needed to believe I never done that. I was just so ashamed of it,
mm,
so ashamed of my body, so ashamed of being irresponsible to get pregnant at that age. There was just so many feelings of guilt, of shame around that. And it was only when I lived in the UK, which is a country in which abortion is legalized for women, and because it's legalized for women, there is a system in place to
mm,
talk about the emotional wounds a woman go through, to talk about the decision, to talk about women's rights over her body, and all of it, that I began looking and telling my story and understanding what I went through and also recovering my body as sacred. Because when I did that abortion, it was internalized within me the idea of sin,
mm,
of doing something. I think Christianity in Brazil, I'll just say this
mm,
Christianity in Brazil did not build women to think their bodies are sacred.
mm,
It's already a sinful body.
mm,
And then once an abortion is done, it's even worse. At least that was the experience I had and held at the
mm,
time. And it was in the UK that I began this healing journey with my body. And I told my story many times, and in telling it, I cleanse it, I felt. In telling it, I took out that veil that was this huge taboo.
mm,
It's and I turned away from the idea that my abortion, my experience was a secret, and it became sacred. Sacred in the sense that it's part of my story. It's
mm,
befriending who I am. It's standing on my own 2 feet as well, owning my actions, taking responsibility for that, and understanding it's a piece of me. Funny enough, between my abortion and starting to heal that, I had very toxic relationships. I wasn't really connected to partners that would do me good.
Mm.
And then as soon as I began owning that, I actually met my
Mhm.
husband
Mm.
shortly after. And we dated for a long time as boyfriend and girlfriend. We lived together. We got married. He knew about my abortion. It was something I told him, like, kind of, as I was telling him about who I am.
Mhm.
And after we got married, we started trying to get pregnant. And I really wanted to have a baby. It was just this feeling I felt ready. All my friends had babies, so I was also seeing all that love around, all that baby feeling around. And I tried and I tried, and it just wasn't happening. I, because I had an abortion before, I was so afraid of getting pregnant unplanned. So I
Mm.
was on contraception. So as I thought, oh, as soon as I stop contraception,
Mm.
I'm going to get pregnant. Like it's going to be easy for me. It's going to be, done. And it wasn't like that. It it began taking a toll on our relationship. I became very anxious. Um, I started relating to my blood in a very different way with my menstruation. Before, when it came, and even the periods when I was out of contraception, where the bleeding
Mhm.
was more intense, it was always a sense of a very feminine experience,
Mm.
a very wild experience as well.
Mm.
And at this time, when I was trying to get pregnant, every bleed, every period felt with so, I was just so sad. It just came with sadness.
Mm.
It's almost like I felt that it's like I would tear from my eyes, these watery tears, and I would tear from my body, these bloody tears.
Mm.
And then I, well, in all of this, it was a year trying to get pregnant, a little bit less than a year.
Mm.
I was on the phone with my mother. She knew I was trying to get pregnant. She never knew of the abortion. Okay,
Mm.
I told many people, my partner, women who would sit in circle with me,
Mhm.
friends, never told my mother because my mother had that, right? I had that experience with her,
Mhm.
my adolescence year, which was, no, you're not having sex, that's something to do after marriage, or it just wasn't spoken. And I was trembling as I would tell my mother because I thought she would be so disappointed in me, not just for the abortion itself, but the unplanned pregnancy.
Mhm.
And I told her over the phone, I lived in China at the time with my husband. And on the phone, I didn't call her to tell. It was a desire I had to tell her, but I was just on the phone talking about something else and telling about the pregnancy, trying to get pregnant.
Mhm.
I said, Mom, and I've been pregnant before when I was 19 of this boyfriend. And I told her the whole thing. I said,
Mm.
and I had an abortion. It was in a clinic. Told her the whole story, trembling with how she was going to answer me.
Mm.
And she said, I've done one too.
Mm.
And I just couldn't believe that. It's just, I could believe it, of course, but I mean, it was just so out of, well, first I can see how it was a lineage secret.
Mm.
And it was so important to speak out, to open, to unlock that.
Mm.
And then 3 weeks later, I was pregnant.
Mm.
So I felt, and here there's kind of a little bit more to the story, but I felt that I unlocked something that was holding me back.
Mm.
That when it comes to fertility, when it comes to conceiving, there was some blockage, energetic blockage. And I don't know if it's hard to explain without sounding a bit woo-woo,
Mm.
but I'm just going to say I felt that there was, because I did in this year, I went to doctors, I
Mhm.
was 31, 32-year-old, extremely healthy, my
Mhm.
partner as well. We went to doctors, everything was fine. There was no reason to explain us not getting pregnant.
Yeah.
They would call it stress and anxiety.
Mhm.
It's true, maybe there was a big component of that, but I think there was this other component of something that needs to be taken care of first
Mm.
before a seed can land on the ground. You know, it's almost like the ground, the soil, and I can tell you more about this in mythology, but the soil needs to be rich. The
Mm.
soil needs to be fertile for a seed to be able to be planted. And once I told my mother I got pregnant, we
Mhm.
got very happy. We had a pregnancy for about 11 weeks. We
Mhm.
saw the heartbeat and the monitor. You know, I was told my family. We were all so excited, especially after that big year.
Mm.
And I had a miscarriage. And it was devastating. I think it was even harder than the year. It was just devastating because I had so much expectation.
Yeah.
But I think the miscarriage was also another experience of healing for me. I did the same procedure for the miscarriage as I did for my abortion, which is
Mm.
a curative procedure.
Mhm.
Um, for the abortion, I did it in a clinic in Brazil with no support, no acknowledgement, completely hidden because it
Mhm.
was in society illegal and hidden
Mm.
in my family as well because I kept it a secret and I was so ashamed. This time, my entire family knew. They weren't there. They were in Brazil. I was in China
Mm.
with my husband, but they all knew. They were sending messages, you know. They were being loving, and they were supportive. My husband was there by my side, holding my hands. My friends from China and Shanghai, they were sending flowers and chocolate and
Mm.
pampering me with soups and broths. Um, and I wrote a letter to the baby, and it was done with so much consciousness. It was done with so much love as well, with so much presence. I shed all the tears I had to shed, not just the moment that it happened, because we went to the appointment,
Mhm.
the heart, and there was no heartbeat. So
Mhm.
we received the news and everything, and I discussed with my doctor what could I do? I could wait and bleed
Mhm.
out. I could, have the procedure. We had some things happening in our lives at the time with trips around Christmas. So I decided to do the procedure. And it was very interesting to go through it again and to go through it in a very different way. What I see and what I felt from my life, it's not the procedure that is traumatic. It is the way
Mm.
that we hold it.
Yeah.
It's not the wound itself that is traumatic. The wound is a wound. But
Mhm.
if we tend to the wound can be healed. The wound can even deepen if you think of a wound in our skin,
Mhm.
it deepens our access into it. It
Yeah.
also, as it heals, it becomes a scar, and scar is thicker than skin.
Mhm.
So it builds a little bit of strength as well, a little bit of life experience, a little bit of knowing in life. Initiations and insights that give you some depth.
Mhm.
I feel, yeah, so I had my miscarriage. I think also everything I've done around this miscarriage in that, okay, it wasn't a red tent. I wasn't around a fire pit. And I
Mhm.
say this because I speak every day to contemporary women who are in urban jungles and they want to connect with their feminine side. They want to connect with their soul. And they feel
Mhm.
that because they are in high buildings or, you
Mhm.
know, busy streets with lots of cars, they can't do that. And I'm here to say, yes, you can. I did it from a hospital room.
Mhm.
And I created a container to honor that miscarriage, to honor that life that was being lost. And it was such a healing experience for me. My doctor said I could go ahead and try again after one menstruation cycle.
Mhm.
So I told my husband, I turned to him. It was very intense, that period of time. So I just turned to him and said, I want to stop trying, but no, I'm not going to go back in contraception. And no, you shouldn't use any kind of
Mhm.
barrier or anything, but let's just relax.
Mhm.
Enough looking at our ovulation dates, like let's just relax
Mm.
a
Mm.
while, a
Mm.
few cycles. And I got pregnant the following cycle,
Mm.
1 month after. And then I had my daughter, Elisa.
Mm.
And because of all this story, all this journey with pregnancy and loss, I always wanted more children, like
Mhm.
one more. And I said to him, like, oh, I don't think it's going to happen so fast, right? It didn't last time for us.
Yeah.
Let's just relax as well. And I thought it was going to take me a while to get pregnant again. But
Mm.
when Elisa, my first was 7 months, I got
Yeah.
pregnant again with my second baby.
Oh,
And then I had my second baby, which was a surprise. And it was like, oh, wow, okay.
yeah.
But my body, and it's beautiful how when we heal, our body is so ready.
Hmm.
And my body was so ready. Even our birth was, the birth was very different.
Mm.
Matteo, my second, arrived in like 30 minutes.
Mm.
It was all so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I have my two babies, and I'm very grateful, but not just for them. I'm very grateful to the babies I lost. I'm very grateful to the whole journey because it informs the mother I am today. It informs the woman I am today.
Hmm.
It just gives me a different sense of depth, sense of
Yeah.
grief.
Thank you for sharing. And there's so many beautiful parts to that story. You reliving your mother's story and then
Mm,
making that end with you by opening up, ending the secrecy. I also loved what you said about the wound or the scar tissue making you
yeah,
stronger. How tending to the wound helped you create that sacred container. The red tent that you were speaking about, how you can have that red tent in your hospital room. That's very much my own experience as well. And I want to check something with you because lately I've been feeling when it comes to pregnancy loss. So there's the wound, but there's also, I want to say, like the rite of passage. Um,
mm,
it's and I think that's what you really see in mythology as well, is that being a woman means that you carry both, or your womb is a portal to both life and death. And once you've had that experience of loss, it's almost like the fullest embodiment of what it means to be a woman. And I feel that that's like we are, starting to talk more about our losses. We're starting to talk more about the wound. And I feel that that might even be a next step, is where we also honor the mother who's gone through that. Or that's almost like I said, the fullest embodiment of being a woman, of having a womb that's the portal to both life and death.
absolutely. Absolutely is. It's an experience of womanhood, isn't
Mm.
it?
Yeah.
The miscarriage. And
It's not an
through
exception. It's part of being a
oh,
woman.
yes. Um, my Chilean family, my husband is Chilean, and the women in Chile of my family there, my mother-in-law, my the grandmother of my husband, her mother, the mother of my mother-in-law, she had had 6 miscarriages. And once I had mine, she reached out to send me a message and say, like, oh, I had mine as well. Like, you were not alone.
Mm.
And since then, we actually spoken a lot about it. Every time she sees me in a family gathering there in Chile, she comes and she wants to talk about hers, because I think she feels seen in
Mm-hmm.
many ways. It's an experience that connects us. It is an experience that connects us with life and death. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but us women, we bleed every month with menstruation during our menstrual years of life. But then we bleed with childbirth and we bleed with miscarriages, with pregnancy loss, an incredible amount of blood with
Mm.
miscarriage. But we bleed with no violence.
Mm.
This bleed is a surrender, this bleeding act. It is almost like I feel it's not that I do this, but I have this image of kneeling to the ground and letting the blood flow to the
Mm.
earth. And men, if they want to experience blood, they need to encounter violence. If
Mm.
we look at ancient societies, men need to commit sacrifices, so sacrifice animals, or get into battles to experience blood. The blood in men, around men, the experience of blood, it's very violent, while for women it is not. However, it is an important connection between human and blood. Blood is life and death.
Mm-hmm.
Blood is death, it's loss,
Yeah.
but it's also life. A baby is born covered in blood. Blood needs to be held for life to take place.
Yeah.
So for us to have every month an indifferent experience of childbirth or of miscarriage, an incredible amount of blood. It gives
Mm.
us tremendous insight, even if we don't realize it. Unconsciously, we are gaining tremendous insight into the wildness and sacredness of a woman's body and
Mm.
of life.
Reminds me of something my teacher told me. So I trained to become an abdominal therapist. My teacher was trained in the Mayan tradition, and her teacher told her that in his community, the menstruating women were the community oracles. Like that's where the
Mhm.
elders would ask about their dreams because they not only held that, that wisdom, that blood wisdom for themselves, but for the entire community. And ooh, we've gotten
And
far, far lost from that as a society. So I found you because I saw a post. No, so I followed you for a while, but then I saw your post on the Unseen River, a workshop you were organizing on the power of mythology, specifically for women who were going through loss. And that's when I knew I wanted to interview you. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about how you use mythology to support women who've experienced loss.
well, the way my courses and workshops are designed is I tell a story very much from a storytelling perspective. So, with this feeling of a once upon a time, it's really inviting the imaginal world, the imagination, the uncolonized mind in. And I tell the story. We look into the symbols, the images, the emotions that it evokes for us. And then we interpret these symbols. We look a little bit more into the depth of it, how it appears in different mythologies, and what could it signify for us. So specifically with the unseen river, it's an Australian tale I found here. It's called The Lyrebird, and it's a story. I won't tell you the whole story, but I'll just say there is an image there, a moment that a woman lays an egg after having an encounter with a bird. She lays an egg and she takes this egg and she drops it in the river and she goes back home and she continues um, her life. And this motif, a motif is a pattern, a motif is an image that is recurring in different stories, the theme. This motive of dropping the egg in the river is very symbolic for us. And I would invite women to lean into this. So the egg is pure potential, is life. It can be seen in different aspects of life as different things. But here in the unseen river, I was talking about the egg as the potential for a baby.
Mm.
But this is a baby who never came. It came but never arrived. That's
Mm.
a little bit the feeling, and it could be an abortion or a miscarriage, and it's given back into the river. And the river is the life and death. The river is in many mythologies, like Greek mythology, there's the river Styx, which is
Mm.
the river one needs to cross to enter the land of the dead. In Hindu mythology, for example, the river is the place where they give the bodies of the dead, even the river Ganges, which is very famous around the world in India. It's a sacred river for them where they would put the bodies after they are dead to cremate
Mm.
them. So it is this idea of releasing instead of keeping it in, releasing. If there are women here who had miscarriages, I would invite you to even think and reflect, have you released your miscarriage into the world, the
Mm.
spirit of that baby into the river of life and death? Or is it something you're holding, because the connection is always there between you and the baby. But the myth would teach us that it needs to be released.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Like, so when I had my loss, I couldn't get pregnant afterwards. So I had the complete opposite story as you have. And that's one of the things that was part of my healing journey was recognizing that I was still holding on to that baby's energy in my womb space and that I could keep that baby in my heart. I needed to bring that energy up to my heart because it didn't need to stay in my womb. I could still, so I
Mm.
really recognize what you're saying. That connection is always there. And I even feel like my son that was born years later, that's the same soul. Like when I talk about my miscarriage, I will immediately point or unconsciously point to my son when I talk about. So I really feel
That's
that.
beautiful. Yeah.
Are there certain archetypes that women can turn to for guidance and support on their fertility journey more generally? Like what are good myths for women who are having trouble conceiving?
Well, I think the story of Demeter and Baubo is a good one that we already
Mm,
mentioned. And if you want to go a little bit deeper into that tale, I would invite you to listen to a podcast episode that I have there so listeners can follow up with that. Another archetype goddess that you can look up and even put it on Google to see an image of her because she's quite beautiful is Hestia. She's also
mhm,
from Greek mythology. And Hestia is the goddess of the home in many ways, of warmth. And how is that even related to motherhood? I feel that many times in our fertility journey, we are so attached and anxious about having a baby that we forget that we are home for the baby, that we are building a home either with a partner or by ourselves to receive this baby in our bodies and then also in our kind of physical nest, in our house, in our home.
mhm,
And Hestia is someone who can help us remember that. Hestia is the goddess that does the dishes by doing the dishes without doing a to-do list in her mind. You know, she is the goddess that sweeps the floor by sweeping the floor.
mm,
Just and that presence, that mindfulness in Hestia, that warmth in Hestia, she's also interested and focused in the domestic life in many ways. Not that she's the goddess of, traditional
Housewives,
wedding.
yeah.
Yeah, no, she's not. Far from it. She is the goddess of home. She's the goddess of warmth. She's the one who knows how to keep the fire in the house lit. And I feel she could inform a lot of women, remembering that we are also mothering ourselves,
Mhm,
taking care of ourselves, and taking care of our space. So if a baby is to come, it arrives in a place of presence, in a place of mindfulness, in a body that is slow in some ways.
mm,
And then another goddess in a very different feeling, because if we think of Hestia, I'm talking about a very intimate space,
mhm,
right? It's your home, it's your privacy, it's your individuality, it's going very slow. It's powerful, but it's gentle and subtle. And then on the other hand, we have the creatrix goddess, so the creator goddesses in different mythologies. A lot of indigenous mythologies will have her. It's the goddess of creation who created the world, Gaia, in many ways. That's also an image for women. It's reminding us again of our power of fertility, our power of creation, our power to give life. In the Western world, this power was kind of, I wouldn't say stolen, but it was definitely buried with the creation of one male god of
mm,
Christianity. But before we had one male god, we had a plurality of goddesses. And we also had this powerful creator goddess, the one that creates the world, the one that moves rivers and makes flower blooms, and seeds grow. Connecting with that energy, I think, can be very powerful.
mm. Yeah, I'm actually working on a course right now. It's called The Sovereign Womb, where we're going all the way back to that first creatrix and also sensing what just connecting with her, what that does in the womb space, how you can access just the pure beauty of life, where
Mm,
all you have to do is sit and receive. And it's hard to explain in words because it's such a physical sensation, an energetic sensation. Hi there, I'm quickly breaking in to tell you that the waitlist to the Sovereign Womb program is now open. The Sovereign Womb is a 10-week online journey in which we dive deep into ancient womb mythology. I teach you somatic practices to reconnect to that deep wisdom that's been living inside you all along and help you access your most authentic source of power and work through any blockages around it. The program is a blend of online ceremonies and self-guided coursework, and I'd love to see you inside. Head over to thatfertilefeeling.com/womb for more information. And now, back to the episode. if you would go back to your own fertility journey, how would you have worked with that image of Gaia?
I think I've worked a lot with it, with these. I did a lot of meditations.
Hmm.
It's almost like I connected Hestia and Gaia together, because for me, it really was about slowing down. I was living in Shanghai, which is a very big city in China, a lot of technology, a lot of high buildings. And it was really for me finding that home space, building that red tent you speak about inside my apartment in
Mm.
Shanghai, while at the same time reconnecting myself with that power of Gaia. So I had a little altar in which I brought the elements of the earth, so water, air, fire, and earth together. And I would just do all these meditations, almost like shamanic journeys, reconnecting myself with the earth, imagining, really inviting that in. I did some hypnotherapy as well, and it was always about kind of going into the center of the earth for me, down under a tree.
Mm.
And the symbol of Gaia for me is this beautiful tree with large branches and leaves, and sometimes some flowers appears or some fruit, but also beautiful long roots, very grounded,
Mm.
about going down this tree. So I would work a lot with Gaia in this way. And then, of course, searching the myths in
Mm.
which she appears. There's specifically one, it's called Sky Woman. You can find it in a very known book, actually, called Braiding Sweetgrass
Mm.
by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it's one of the first chapters. She has Sky Woman there. And it's a beautiful tale, and you can see a glimpse of the creatics.
Mm. I actually have it here behind me. It's a
Oh,
wonderful book. I mentioned this before we started our conversation. When I was on my own fertility journey, I was also looking for inspiration, sort of the archetype of the, yeah, I don't like the word, but the barren woman. I was looking for that woman without children who was maybe the cornerstone of her community or the holder of ancestral knowledge. And it was hard for me. I couldn't really find anything. So I was wondering if you have any archetypes or if there's any mythology that mothers can turn to also for inspiration of what life could look like without children.
well, before, yes, there are some ideas that we can bring on this, but
Mm.
I just want to bring this motive, this image for women. We talked about how miscarriage is not a foreign experience to women. It's not uncommon, right? It's not the exception.
Hmm.
It's womanhood's experience, right?
Yeah.
It happens. And having trouble to conceive, it also happens. Just before we started our recording, we were talking about how sometimes we might feel that having trouble conceiving fertility issues are a modern issue or
Mm.
something. And I'm sure there are mother inputs in it. I mean, that, the stress, the busy life, the food we eat, all of this plays a part,
Chemicals. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? It's an ingredient in the thing. But what we see through myths is that the journey of fertility, it is actually a much more ancient journey for women. And having trouble to conceive, it's also not a foreign motive for women. It's not, it's a pattern. And the myths, even the story, I'm going to mention here a story that I believe a lot of people know, Rapunzel, the original, the ancestral version of Rapunzel. Wouldn't call it original. There's no such thing with original myths. It's
Hmm.
the ancestral because we never know where it stems from, where it comes from. But the ancestral version of Rapunzel, it's a mother who cannot conceive. And this story of a mother who cannot conceive, a queen who cannot conceive, it's so common in myths and tales. And many stories begin with this. It was a beautiful king and queen
Mm.
and they were beloved by their kingdom. However, there was a sadness over them, and that was because the queen could not conceive a child. This happens again and again and again in stories. And there are some different ideas that, like different movements that myth brings to transform that. And I wanted to bring two that I love, if I can.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
May I? Okay. One of them, it's one myth. Um, they come to consult a wise person. This king and queen who cannot conceive, they come to consult a wise person. And this wise person say, well, tell me something about your castle. Where is your bedroom? And the king turns and says, well, of course, it's in the west wing of the castle, on the top of the tower, the most beautiful view we have there of the entire kingdom. So our bedroom is there. And the wise person turns to them and say, well, that's the problem. You are too far from the ground. No conception will happen too far from the ground. You know what you will do? You will grab a bucket of water, you take it to a room, maybe even the barn, somewhere close to the muck,
Mm-hmm.
close to the ground. You will take a bucket of water, you wash um, the room, and then you get that water and you drop it under the bed. And you
Mm-hmm.
put the bed there in this room, let's say at the barn, or a room very close to the ground in the castle. And it is there where you will conceive your child. And this specific story goes on, and they do have a baby because of it, showing us that to conceive, we need to be close to what is fertile within us. We need to be close to that creator energy. We need to be close to the ground, to the muck, to the most fertile soil within us and our land. Another motive that appears, same thing, cannot conceive a baby. Mother and, I'm sorry, queen and king cannot conceive a baby. Come to a wise person. What do we do? And the wise person turns to the queen and says, you go out to the edge of the forest and you speak your desires into a cup and you turn your cup on the land upside down.
Mm-hmm.
The next morning, a flower will have grown there. Eat this flower. Those are the instructions. So again, and they do get pregnant in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And this again shows us speak your desires into the land. I would also invite women to consider in their fertile journey, are they speaking their desires? More than I desire to have a baby,
Mm-hmm.
what are your other desires around life? Are you speaking your truth as well? Are you speaking from the heart? And when I say speaking, it's not just voicing it to your therapist, is are you living accordingly?
Mm-hmm.
Are you owning it? Are you able to speak your truth? Live your truth. For me, that made a lot of sense. This motive, when I spoke to my mother, when I owned my story, I started unlocking things for me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's connected to the earth, right? So there's this creative energy of the flower coming forth, the blooming, the connection to the feminine. The flower is a symbol of mortality for us, for humans,
Mm-hmm.
because the flower, as soon as it blooms, it's also dying already. So it's a symbol of spring, of life, of the feminine, but also of mortality, of life, death, life.
Mm-hmm.
So a very interesting motive there. And then you also asked me about the barren woman.
Mm-hmm.
What I would see in myths is that women who are not given a child in their own bellies are given a child elsewhere, are given a child in different ways. And this could be a baby,
Mm-hmm.
but this could also be a village, becoming a healer, becoming a wise woman, becoming someone that takes care and have that mothering instincts in a different way. There's something about having a mother consciousness. And mothers would even describe it as, oh, let's say, I loved going in the back of the motorcycle with my husband. And then since I became a mother, I am so fearful of it. It's the
Mm-hmm.
mother consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly she is responsible for something. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I never cared for cooking. And then suddenly I have children and now I want to cook. It's the mother consciousness emerging. And a woman can connect with this mothering consciousness even though she doesn't have children, because she can bring those mothering feelings and these mothering qualities towards the land, towards other children, towards other people as well, towards other women. There are so many ways. I love the uniqueness of it. For every woman, there will be a way. There are as many ways as there are women in this world.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of things I take away from that is really focus on your creative potential, not just for fertility, but just what is it that you want to create in the world. Really focus on your inner compass, let your inner compass guide you, and
Mm.
also experiment with where you can put that mothering energy. Is that a good summary? Like find
Yeah.
outlets for that mothering energy. Yeah. One question that if you don't mind, can I ask you one short question? So when we're talking about the mother who mothers older children, I was reminded of the stepmothers who always have such a terrible role in myths. Why is that? What's the archetype of the stepmother? What's going on
I'm
there?
gonna tell you, I'm a stepmother. Um, my stepdaughter is 17 years old, turning
Yeah.
18 in September. She's wonderful, Olivia. Absolutely beautiful. It's a role. I love being a stepmother, and since I became a mother, I love it even more being a stepmother because it's such a, especially because my stepdaughter has a beautiful, present, loving, caring mother
Mm,
of her own. I can really be stepmother, meaning, I can enjoy so much of the relationship and the mothering. Yet, when we talk about the mother in myth, and I'll just take a tangent here, but I'll wrap it up fast. But when we talk about the inner mother in myth, a mother in the woman's psyche, in the woman's soul, a healthy one is one that gives boundaries of protection, knows how to take care, place safety, while at the same time instigates a woman to pursue her dreams, to take risks that she is willing to build a life that she desires, to maybe break a certain code, to really pursue life. So you can see that, for example, a woman who does not know how to take care of herself puts herself into many toxic relationships, abuse alcohol or abuse even food or exercise or any kind of thing, might be a woman who does not have those boundaries of protection well built. And she needs to adjust that, develop that. Yet, a woman who is always saying, like, no, I cannot do this because it's too dangerous. Or they really want to, I don't know, start painting, but they are scared of what people will think. That might be also an inner mother that is not adjusted because the inner mother within us should say, do you desire this? Go for it.
mm,
Do you really want this? Do you believe this will bring you joy, happiness, fulfillment, sovereignty over your life? Let's take the first step, right? So it's the balance between both boundaries of self-protection, instigating dreams and desires, being able to take risks for what is worth.
mm,
It's the equilibrium between both. And as a stepmother, I can do that with a much more clear conscience, let's say. As a mother, I feel so worried. As a mother, I feel like it's so much my responsibility to give those boundaries of protection that it's hard to say, go for it. But with my stepdaughter, because she has a very great mother who does that,
mm,
um, so I love being a stepmother. Even the word in Portuguese or Spanish, madrasta, I love it, but because of the fairy tales, it has been corrupted.
mm,
And I have this internal joke with my stepdaughter that is like, we claim it, and we're somewhere and she needs to introduce me like, this is my stepmom. And I say, this is my stepdaughter, without feeling like we're playing a Cinderella kind of story.
mm,
Um, Yet, why are there so many stories of the stepmother being the persecutor, the
mm,
stepmother being the evil one? There are different versions of it, like different mythologists, different historians, scholars of stories say different things, but a lot of them agree that it's because a part of mother, if we look at the mother archetype, there is the devouring mother. There is the mother that persecutes. That is the mother. It exists. It
mm,
exists in so many women's stories in our real world. However, when given these stories in stories, it's easier to take it away from the role of the mother and place it in another. Place it in the stepmother. So it's still that mothering feeling that should
mhm,
be there, but we can give her the shadow side. So we left the mother in stories in the light, the
Mm-hmm.
loving, kind mother that usually dies, and then the stepmother
Mm-hmm.
as the shadow.
Yeah.
But the truth is, they are one and the same.
Thank you for that. Thank you also for a beautiful conversation. What would be your general message for anyone who's dealing with fertility issues and or pregnancy loss?
Honestly, no advice. I've I've been there. So I think at that time there was nothing anyone could say that would heal.
Mm-hmm.
What, what I appreciated was presence from my friends, from my family, just being there. And I would say if the work with myths, if anything shared today resonated, instigated, brought a little insight, brought a little idea, landed as a seed, look into stories, look into myths. Maybe they can guide you. Maybe they can give some comfort, they can give some inspiration. It's a very unique journey, I think, fertility, pregnancy loss. So it's about walking your own path, understanding you are not alone, but the path is yours to walk. And if you want to explore myth, you can always come to Women in Mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say life is very precious. It's so precious being alive. It's such a gift. We are only here, I believe, in this form and body and consciousness once. So there is more to it as well, more to life, and there are other things that can be done during this time. I wish, I think it's hard if someone said that to me at the time, I probably wouldn't have listened. But I feel like the year I spent trying to get pregnant was defined as a year I was trying to get pregnant. And I wish it wasn't. I wish I was enjoying my marriage. I wish I was, developing my career and pursuing my dreams and doing sports. But I was so stressed over it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much saying helps.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to do it differently, I would have enjoyed that year and that
Mm-hmm.
time of my life differently.
Thank you. And if women want to find out more about you and your work, where can they find you? So you mentioned Women in Mythology. What's your website?
Yes, so my website is womanandmythology.com,
Mm-hmm.
woman in plural with a E. And the podcast has the same name, Women in Mythology. You can find it on all places podcast lives. And then also my Instagram, if you just want mythical nuggets, if you just want to start getting familiar with my work and the work with myths, come follow the work there. It's a great starting point.
Thank you so much. I'll put it all in the show notes so that the listeners can find you.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
Thanks also to the listeners for tuning in this week. And if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram at that fertile feeling or email me at francoise at thatfertilefeeling.com. I always love to hear from you and I always get back to you and hope to see you back in 2 weeks. Bye bye.